right, come on. Aha, there we go, early concepts. Okay, so once we had a pretty good idea about who the Pandaren were, our team started coming up with some preliminary concepts and ideas. I wanted to show you just kind of the progression. This darn thing. I don't even know what I'm aiming at. There we go. Ah, wireless. Okay. As Mark said, sky's the limit, anything goes. You know, we have some gorgeous concepts here, some really nice silhouettes, and even though we didn't use them necessarily verbatim, it's important. It kind of shows the evolution of the design that to what you see in the game today. So, what did we come up with? We know that the Pandaren are a very colorful and creative race. They're into balance and harmony, at one with the earth, I call that stuff. And we really tried to exemplify that in the temples and the building structures and their housing that you see in the game. So for the starting zone especially, we really wanted it to feel very special and almost ethereal, a place that you would never want to leave. We also wanted their homes to feel very cozy and inviting. One of the challenges we had with this race was that we had to fill a whole entire continent with Pandaren structures. And as Mark had mentioned, there's the 4 clans, each with their own characteristics and designs. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we started with the base structure, and we kind of tweaked the textures, changed out the colors, either simplified or exaggerated the silhouette, depending on where they were placed in the zone, just so they felt more cohesive with their surroundings. So the brewery, okay, very important part for the Pandaren. One of the highest honors of being a Pandaren is becoming a brewmaster. So it's no surprise that we have a whole entire zone dedicated to the Pandaren just making brew. I had plenty of volunteers on the dungeon team willing to go to breweries, sake houses, Oktoberfest, beer tasting festivals, many, many nights and overtime even, just so they could get a clear picture, although probably that's in the morning, of what it means to be a brewmaster. So what we ended up with was kind of a simplified version using a lot of wood and bamboo, kind of pared down. The idea was just to make it so that they didn't have to worry about their housing, because the most important thing for them to do is to make Pandaren brew. So last but not least, let's talk about dungeons. And I know you're all out there, the dungeon players. Let's hear it. Yay! So I wanted to give you a sneak peek of the 4 dungeons that we've been working on in the last couple months. Well, I guess it's been 4 or 5 months. And I had each of the artists that is in charge of the dungeons kind of give you an overview of what stuck out to them and how they pulled some of the characteristics of the Pandaren into the dungeons they're creating.
The Great Wall divides the entire continent of Pandaria. It's a really big wall. It was built not by the Pandas, but by the Mogu. They're an older, more militant race that was in charge before the Pandarans were. When the Pandarans do rise to power, they see the need for the wall and have maintained it ever since. The wall itself needed to be darker and less ornamental than some of our other Pandaren buildings. This is a really big structure, so we left the majority of the wall pretty stark. We did things like use darker colors and use monolithic shapes to give it a real solid and an imposing presence. The Great Gate is the only place on the wall where we went a little more ornate, a little more colorful. This is where all the action happened, so we wanted it to stand out and look the part.
I think with the Ghost Brewery, we didn't want to, it's supposed to be taken over by spirits, but it's not supposed to be like, haunted and scary. So something kind of, fun, and not like spooky. It's kind of like the feel that we try and go for. Well, basically, I just kind of looked at a lot of the classic 2D films. You know, they always have a lot of great artwork, especially the painted backgrounds. So that's always a good resource. And then again, like references from like a lot of the rice sake breweries in China. It's always a good source. A lot of the old Warcraft 3 artwork and Sammy stuff's like very colorful. So I always try to like make my stuff like, you know, just as colorful, just as stylized, kind of differentiate it from like, you know, other artwork.
The East Temple was as challenging to make as I think it will be for players. It was imagined as a massive ancient 1,000-year-old temple hanging off the easternmost point of Pandaria. This dungeon was going to be unique because players would be able to choose from 3 separate paths, so we knew that this would be quite an undertaking.
The Shadowpan are the Pandaren warriors of the Shah, up in the high mountains of the Kunlai summit. The Shah being a dark energy and all, the Shadowpan make it their duty to bring balance to the island as a force of good. In fighting the Shah, however, the Shadowpan have taken in some of that darker energy, so they're a little edgier, as if a little of that darker force is corrupting their sensibilities. So with that in mind, the Shadowpan are more aggressive, a little more stark in nature. So I made an environment with those ideas in mind.
Okay, let's hear it for the dungeon team. Okay, so now that you've seen the Pandaren character design, we've applied the animation, you've been able to see the environment that he's going to be running through and some of the dungeons and the housing that he will be using. I'm going to now turn it over to Eric Browning, who's in charge of the prop team.
I think I forgot my presentation, the whole thing. I've been so full of anxiety sitting here, afraid that my fellow artists out there are going to catch me sitting like this. And so everything's out of my head. I'm just thinking about that this whole time. Oh, am I doing it? Am I doing it? So I'm going to stand up, walk around. So my name is Eric Browning. Got an awesome animation to show my name is Eric Browning. Go away, panda. Aw. Yeah. All right. Eric Browning, prop art lead. So I'm going to talk about propagating Pandaria. Get it? It's a joke. Never mind. It's not the same as panda propagation. That's a different panel. So let's take a look at 500 plus new props that we've made for this expansion. Together. There they are. Soak it in. I like that one right there. I don't like that one, but that one is awesome. So thank you. Enjoy the show. So going back a while, our early concepts, our process always starts with lots of reference gathering. Yeah. And then we draw like crazy. Lots and lots of pictures, sometimes even using a pencil and paper like old man Gibbons would do.
It's old fart Gibbons, I've told you about that before.
So at this point, it's all about putting down as many ideas as we can. Check this out. It's a goldfish-powered hovering panda mount. I think it's, yeah, no. Does anybody want this? No! Bad players.
You're in trouble now.
Because Chris said you can't have this. It's too awesome. Probably blow up your computer. So we're trying different looks, ideas for exterior stuff. In the upper left, the frog flute, or the frog arena of time, as I like to call it. I thought it could be World of Warcraft, the frog arena of time. Whole different game if we ever do consoles again. Banners, which I'll show you some of these later. Lots and lots of ideas. We have to fill up all these houses, all these dungeons, exterior areas, and the designers at this point are desperate for stuff. They're also working, and they're making, putting zones together, and stories are being written. So they're waiting on us. I'm going to touch on that shortly. Oops. I'm not going to get to see that one. Funny story. So this circular motif that you see a lot in the interiors, I was thinking that these are bears, right? So they hibernate, and so we'll kind of pull. We're grabbing at straws early on, like what kind of element can we pull from to describe their life? Well, what you may not know, this is a little inside baseball, but the Pandarans are based on pandas. No. Yeah. Yeah. Pandas. So pandas in turn are based on bears. But unlike real bears, pandas don't hibernate. And I didn't know that, and so I kept pushing my team. Oh, you got to do it. You got to be like the bears, because they sleep and they'll be all comfy, and so we'll make this round den shape, and then it'll look like they love to be at home. And yeah, Eric, why don't we make a quest where you get your head stuck in a honeypot too? It's my stereotyping the bears.
Just got tasked.
So anyway, so this is a training prop. You probably saw this. It's one of the first ideas. It's very simple, but we started to get sort of an idea of like what the shapes would be like. None of these got used. That's mine. That's why I'm sad. Tools. Everything is kind of big and pretty simple. And crates. I love the crates. We always have to have crates. And exterior fences, a balloon that you may or may not have seen today. I just noticed last night that lazy artist, he just threw actual panda bears in there. They're not even the characters, just bears. Just to put a bear in there. So now we bring it all together. We take all these ideas, all of the momentum, the creativity that we put together, and we have to collate this and organize this into a central database. And there it is. Now, the producers at this point, or nursemaids, as I like to call them, they have the job of taking all of our ideas and putting them into a task list and a schedule with durations and times for how long it's going to take us to make this stuff, and then tell us this will be done in 2018, the ideas that you guys have, and then work with us to make a more realistic schedule that we can actually finish.